Alright, it's that time again. It's time for another mid-season patch, this time with version 7.2.0. And oh my goodness, it's been a hot minute since I've last done one of these. And I appreciate your patience with me when it comes to these as well, as I think these are a great way to share my opinions about the patches, big or small, and also just for me to see your thoughts and opinions as well. But yeah, that's enough of that, and without further ado, we shall get going. Now, we know there are changes to Undertow. I'm kind of curious, because Undertow wasn't like an absolutely terrible map, but it could definitely use some small changes, so I'll have a look at that a bit later on. With Sploosh, slightly expanded shots, so the collision detection makes it easier to hit opponents. Okay, so bullet size increase. Not only is that good for painting, but it's also just easier for Sploosh to hit the shots overall, so even though it has the same shot deviation, it's definitely a lot easier to hit opponents up close. That's for sure. With Forge, maximum damage increased from 42 to 45. So instead of dealing 84 damage in 2 shots, you deal 90, which may be a bit more threatening, but I don't think it's enough to compete with some of those heavy hitter midline slayer weapons, like Machine, Squeezer, Stamper, Range Blaster, those weapons. Like, I don't think it'll be able to compete with those still. Mostly just because Forge as a weapon is just overall average. Like, yes, it has alright range, has alright paint, has alright kill time, but it's like not an extreme to where it can just be exploited a lot, especially in competitive play. Nova, so Splash Shot Nova, reduced the shot spread while on land by approximately 8%, so decrease in shot deviation, so it just makes it easier to hit shots even though the weapon's not really meant to like hit shots like get picks. Of course, it makes it easier to do that, but I don't think it's really meant to. With H3, damage is increased from 41 to 44, so that's a nice touch for H3, so instead of dealing 123 with the 3 shots, you're actually dealing 132 if my math is correct about that. It should be. So it's nice to have for H3. It's definitely a lot more threatening, dealing 88 damage with 2 shots compared to 82. Definitely helps with combos, especially like with burst bombs, splat bombs, those sort of things. Luna, increase the radius of ink splatter at the point of impact with terrain, or when detonated midair by approximately 20%. So this is nice for Luna. So it gives it like an indirect range buff to an extent, not really. It just increased the radius of the explosion. So I'm remembering from the top of my head, Luna had a radius, or an indirect radius of 1.8. So adding 20% to that, so it's about 2. Which is totally not a bad thing, because it makes it easier to hit that second shot for sure, and also just helps with paint as well, because with a larger radius, of course, not only in the air, but it's on the ground as well in terms of paint, so if you hit someone once with Luna, it's definitely easier to hit the second shot and actually secure a pick. S-Blast, increase the radius, dealing 50 damage for the long range by about 11%. So that's a nice touch, because the radius for S-Blast is just abysmal when it comes to its longer range. Like, that's just why people play Range Blaster over it, because you can still play fairly close range when it comes to directs, and it's definitely a lot more consistent as a mid-ranged AoE weapon. S-Blast, this doesn't increase, like, if you hit the shots any closer, like the closer you hit your indirect, the more damage you deal. It's not like that. It's just saying the minimum to deal 50 damage, so 50 is the minimum. That's been increased. Everything else is pretty much the same. Like, there's no like damage buff. That's not what it's trying to go for. Paintbrush, increased inking width while holding ZR is okay, so running around by approximately 18%. Nothing crazy to say about that. Shorten the time before ink starts recovering after holding the ZR button by 1/6, so you get 10 less white ink frames, which is nice because Paintbrush is an extremely ink-hungry weapon, that's for sure, so it'll definitely help when it comes to that. Dapples. Movement speed while firing is now 5% faster. That's nice for Dapples. I know the kits kind of like ruin it, but it moves a little bit faster now. Even though it's a lightweight weapon, now it moves 5% faster, so not by dodge rolling, just by painting and strafing around, so that's what that pertains to. It's a nice quality of life change. If only Dapples had a nice kit, then I would probably see it being used a whole lot more. With specials, only a few this time. So Big Bubbler Reduce damage dealt to air, device, and top section. Okay, so like the 2 weak points of the bubbler by 22%. And that's like for every weapon. It's not like specific weapons that have a certain multiplier towards it. So like those longer range weapons, so backlines or those midline slayer weapons we've been talking about before, so range blaster, machine, bucket, stamper, those guys will have a harder time shredding bubbler. The only real bubble using weapon is Splat Roller, like that's the most common you'll see across all 4 modes. Otherwise you may see a bit of Vanilla Blaster and Splatshot Jr., but those are more so for zones and tower control respectively. Splatter color screen, increase the damage dealt from 30 to 40. So that's a nice combo number. For those who don't know, like a good combo number is anywhere between like 35 and 45 around there, give or take. Just because you can combo with bombs, like especially burst bombs, splat bombs, like those indirect explosions. And also weapons that like to combo a lot, so bucket, machine, stamper, range, like they do a lot of damage in one shot. So definitely helps when it comes to that. Yeah, it's a nice combo number. 40 definitely helps in terms of combo. It's just so it's more of a threat as well. Like screen is more of a threat in terms of damage. Because people seem to just tank the shot and just go forward with it and not worry about it. So that's probably why that's a thing. Triple Splashdown. Reduce the amount of time it takes for a player and the ink fists stop dropping after they rise by about 1/6 of a second. Okay. So Splashdown, Triple Splashdown gets activated a bit quicker now, so it was slower than Splatoon 2, so they put it back to that speed, which is nice, and I think it's fair. Because a lot of players, especially like if you played Splatoon 2, you would be pretty used to it. It would also kind of make it a bit harder to cancel as well, just because of how quicker it is. Even though it's like 1/6 of a second, it's still kind of a difference you have to get used to. And decrease the radius to 60 damage explosion, so like the indirect radius splashdowns by approximately 13%. So I don't know if that has to do with like paint as well. I know some people like to paint with splashdown, but or if it's just the damage. It is what it is, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. It definitely helps with people who are like not familiar with splashdown, or like lower level players that can't really cancel splashdown or kind of outmaneuver splashdown. It's not a big deal for competitive players just because they're so used to canceling splashdown as apex or being able to adjust and move out of the way of a splashdown if it does happen. Kraken Royale. Now this is the change we've all been looking for. Basically, super jumping to an ally Kraken will super jump to the location where the allies started using their Kraken. So this helps fix Kraken cheese, because what people would do before is that they would pop a Kraken, most likely with 96 gal deco, something like that, or heavy deco. They would use Kraken, they would go under the clam basket, and just have people super jump to them with power clams or a lot of clams if they can get picks for their Kraken as well. And that was kind of cheap because there's nothing you could do about the Kraken once it was activated, so it's a nice change to add as well. It also might add a bit more strategy as well when it comes to clan blitz, so you need to activate your Kraken a whole lot closer to your opponent's clan basket in order to get use out of it. So that's definitely a nice change, and it shows they've been paying attention to that, which is nice. And points per special. Neo Splash from 200 to 210. Honestly doesn't make sense to me because Splash already spam strikes anyways, even at 210. Ends up 89 from 180 to 170 super jump. I know it's a painting weapon and 170, but jumps have their cooldown, so it's not that bad. And Carbon Roller, oh my goodness, probably the most outclassed. Like you would use Carbon Deco, what am I saying? You would use Carbon Deco over this thing. They put it to 160 Zipcaster. It's like the saddest weapon in the game, in my opinion, Carbon. Oh man, just because it gets so outclassed by the perfect kit for the weapon with Burst Bomb and Trizuka. I don't see much of a change there. Gold Dynamo from 190 to 180. I think that's totally okay, especially with jump output and also just with the ink refill as well, if you decide to just pop chumps right away. Splat Charger and Splatter Scope, just the regular versions from 200 to 190. Ink Fac, I don't think that's like a huge change, but it's definitely nice for trying to get more ink facts out there. Dapples, so regular Dapples from 180 to 170. Tactic Cooler, I don't see this being used maybe in some very niche situations, like some beacon maps, especially like Flounder Heights for example. That's probably about it. I don't really see it getting much use outside of, or compared to NZAP, Tri-Slosher, Snipe Rider, those weapons. I don't see that happening. Splatter Shot 200 to 210 Trizuka, and Squeezer from 210 to 220, helping prevent a bit of the spammability of Trizuka. Range Blaster from 200 to 210. Now this I don't understand. It's not like Wave Breaker is a really good special, and it's not like Range Blaster spams Wave Breakers anyways, so I don't understand, I don't get it. It is what it is, and we just kinda gotta suck it up. Sorry, Range Blaster players. And Sniper from 200 to 210. Now, this is not much of a difference, it's probably just like one shot difference, which may matter in some situations, of course, but at least we got a little change to Snipe Rider in terms of special. And one more they added, didn't really mention here, that they made a change to X rank, so if you're in the top 1000 in a certain mode by the end of the season, instead of being D ranked to S, you will be put into S plus 0, so you'll just have access to X rank again at the start of the season. Which is nice, because if you play a lot of X rank, then yeah, if you get top 1000 X rank, you don't have to go through that tedious process of going through S rank, which can take a lot longer than it really should, and you can just start playing X battles again. But anywho, that about does it for patch 7.2.0. Overall, not many weapons are like getting improved, or I don't think they're really going to be seen a lot more than they already are. I'd say Roller had a nice change, especially with the big bubbler, but everything else I think is probably going to stay how it is. Kraken Chiefs, that's the other big one. I definitely think that's a healthy thing for the game, because now instead of just spamming a special or relying on a special to do something, you actually have to win a fight or use another special or another strategy in order to score in Clan Blitz or other modes more reliably. But yeah, that's all I have to say about patch 7.2.0. I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well in the comments. But besides that, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all later.